I'm Mark Wunderlich, and I'm a poet and writer, and sometimes I'm a visual artist. And I'm really pleased to be participating in this virtual reading series for Poets House. The poem I'm going to read today is by my mentor and teacher, Lucie Brock-Broido. And after she was my teacher at Columbia University, we became friends. Um, this poem is from her book, The Master Letters. And when I first met her in the early 90s, when I became a student at Columbia, she had just been hired there and she was working on this book during that time. This is the last poem in her book, and it's called Moor. And that is a title that she borrows from a poem of the same title by the Austrian poet Georg Trakl. At the time I was her student, I was also a translation student, and I was translating the poems of Georg Trakl and showing them to her. And one of the poems I translated was his poem Moor. She became entranced by these poems and by the story, the tragic story of his life and death. He was recruited into the First World War as a medical uh, staff member. He was a pharmacist. And in the Battle of Grodek, which took place in Poland, he was put in charge as the sole medical personnel in charge of an entire battalion of men who had been badly wounded and were being garrisoned in a barn. He later went on to have a breakdown as a result of this event and later died from an overdose. That's a sad story, and one that Lucie was very interested in. And she wrote this poem, which I will read. More. Am lean against, am the heavy hour, hand at urge at the verge of one, am the ice comb of the tonsured hair, am the second hand halted, the velvet opera glove, am slant, am fen, the injure wind at withens, stranger where the storm forms a face if the body stands enough in a weather this cripple and this rough, am shunt, was moon-faced helmet left in bog, was condition of a spirit shorn, childlike and heard, was Andalusian, absence, bird, am kept, was keeper of the badly marred, was furious done God, was patient, was bad luck, was nurse. 90 badly wounded men lay baying in the reddened, reedy hay of Saxony, was surgeon to their flinch and hoop, was hospice to their torso haul, was numinous creature to their dying off, am numb, was shoulder and queer luck, am among, was gaunt, was why for the mutton and moss, was the rented room, was chamber and ambage and tender and burn, am esurient, was the hungry form, am anatomy, was the bleeding thing. So in this strange and I think really bewitching poem, she has eliminated the first person pronoun in each of these sentences, rendering them into fragments. And like many of the poems in this book, there is a kind of movement that goes back and forth between persona and something more resembling the poet herself, who uses various masks held from with varying degrees away from the self or closer to it in order to mask or veil and then unveil parts of the self. I love the way in which he plays with sound in this poem, the strange syntax of it, the way in which the poem is both broken but also constructs itself around this story. of Georg Trakl. So that was Moor by Lucie Brock-Broido. And I'm going to read a poem of my own. It's a new-ish one. And I have written, over the years, I've written a lot about animals. And having grown up on a farm, there were a lot of animals in my life. And right now, I have no animals. There's no chickens. There's not a stray cat I'm feeding. There is nothing. And people ask me why. This poem is really an answer to that query that people might have. Also, I will just say there is a line here that I am borrowing and is an homage to Robert Creeley, and some of you who know his poems will certainly hear that one here. And this is called No Horse. No horse, no piebald Sicilian donkey, no baby goats gambling on an old cable spool, no cat fat and shedding by the stove, no rooster plumed and cartoonish dashing about the yard, putting a hole in my shin with his spur, no rescued cur, no teacup Pomeranian afraid to walk on grass, piddling on a pea pad like a god. No god either, for that matter, no father. He's all ash. Now mother makes a hash of her checkbook. When she last drove, a small crash. The guinea pigs of childhood whistle from their graveyard at the dump. Gide, the lascivious Frenchie, must hump some other chump. No sheep weep on hilly bourne, no son, not even a little one. No girl curled on gay papa's lap. No way to stop what I've started here. Just steer the goddamn big car. Look out, I shout out the window, but no one hears. Who hears anyway? Who's here anyway? So that was No Horse, a new poem about animals. Thank you for listening in. It was a delight to be visiting here virtually to Poet's House, and I hope to see you all out there in person there at the library when it opens back up. Thanks so much.